I think like English Writing Center is a fascinating space because it provides students to get to open up themselves, like talking about English writing. That is not from a purely like a perspective of standardized tests. I think that's the best part about Writing Center, but it's also, I think, the most challenging part about like working in the task of the mission of a Writing Center in Taiwan. So for most Taiwanese students, because of our learning environment, English oftentimes is merely a tool, as it is an academic subject at school and something you need to consistently study to handle those tests and exams. Personally, I don't completely disagree with the idea of tool because the idea is heavily context-oriented. However, when we admit the idea and treat the English language as more or less a tool, it also makes it difficult for us to appreciate the more free and enjoyable part of it. So Writing Center can be the game changer in this regard. It provides a space where writers can get connected with English language with the help of consultants as experienced and knowledgeable writers in a new way. So a different way of connecting to the English language other than knowing it, learning it from based on the needs for school subject or standardized tests. So starting from a very brief introduction of the policies of Writing Center at UB to the materials I've read in the professional development as a consultant, I'm sharing with you the part of my working experience that I think has enlightened me most so far. So yeah, so this is what I was talking about. Like, this is ideally what Writing Center should be about. It's not kind of like a cram school where you get your English grades boosted. It should be something that is more personal, something that you think with, something you invest your emotions into. Okay, so first up, clear the way. So it's very brief introduction of the very basic policies of CEW, which is the name of the Writing Center, Center for Excellence in Writing at UB. So basically, every student get to schedule 3 45-minute appointments every week. And then if students have extra needs, there's always the negotiation room with the center to have extra appointment every week. So I'll be quick here. So the CEW is not an editing or proofreading service. I believe, so nor is CAL, right? And this simply means that we will not go through the paper, finding and correcting every error for you. And I'll skip to the last part of the statement here. Our mission and training are to provide one-to-one support for your development as a writer. So in other words, its mission is not to kind of like fix a product every time you bring in your writing. It's more about helping you, helping establish yourself as a kind of like effective workflow. Second statement, do you proofreader for students? No. So we're not proofreading service. However, if student indicates that they are, on the final proofreading stage and that improving mechanical stability of their draft is a goal, we work with students on proofreading process and identifying patterns of errors or stylistic problems in their writing. So in other words, our practice is pedagogical. So in other words, we do not necessarily fix all the issues in the writing. And likewise, we don't discuss grades or make any evaluative comments about assignments and papers. So basically, in principle, the CEW at UB is people-centered. We honor and make space for the writer's voice and help writers find their patience in writing, self-initiation at an authentic point of need. So the Writing Center is not an editing service or correctional facility. I think, it's such a popular stereotype. I think it's only more obvious in Taiwan than in the US. So that's why I think, that's the most challenging part of running a Writing Center in Taiwan. We really need it, but because including you guys, you're the pioneers, right? I believe probably there are no more than 5 writing centers in Taiwan. if I remember correctly. So you guys are one of the pioneers. So this is the like one of the most challenging tasks to how to change students' perception about like writing center is not just a correctional facility, which I will talk more about it in details. I mean, really detail. So I have a lot of details here. I hope you bear with me. So the consultation is collaborative and not one-sided labor by the consultants. This is very important, right? We're not laborers. We're not your personal editor. So in the context of Taiwan, maybe we can say that it is important to let students understand that the Center for Academic Literacy in Sida is not a cram school with English teachers free as service, right? So how do we do that? This being said, there are like essential differences between the needs for like the English language between students in Taiwan and the US. The differences between the needs for language will largely dictate the differences in policies in different writing centers. Therefore, you may find my experience not necessarily completely applicable to writing center in Taiwan, and even unrealistic at times, probably. But I believe that despite the possible differences, we do share the goal of awakening the spirit of writer in students. So it's about connection, or more precisely, reconnection. How do we find a way to help students to reconnect with the English language? So what is writing center experience? I don't know if you have like any initial thoughts about like what do you think, like what do you think is the difference between so I heard that the director addressed you guys as tutors. So it's tutors, okay. Tutors and a teacher. Like what's the difference? Because it's very easy for students to walk in the writing center and then suppose that you are the authority figure who knows most of the things, if not everything about writing, and then you can help me solve my issues in my writing. So what's the what's the difference, right? So that difference is what makes writing center experience very unique, very special. So I think basically writing center experience is a different way to experience and connect to the English language that is more like personal and less bound by rules. So experiential, meaning that writers can think of and write in English in a more free and individualistic way, as opposed to they are required to meet some external prompts or rules while listening to professors' instruction or preparing for standardized tasks. So I really like the Harry's quote here. So if you don't mind, I'll just read through it. Writing centers do not and should not repeat the classroom experience and are not there to compensate for poor teaching, overcrowded classrooms, or lack of time for overburdened instructors to confer adequately with their students. Instead, writing centers provide another very crucial aspect of what writers need: tutorial interaction. When meeting with tutors, writers gain kinds of knowledge about their writing and about themselves that are not possible in other institutionalized settings. I think this is a very succinct and very precise description of any writing center's mission. So in order to achieve such experience, I think one of the most important things we have to remember is that we want to approach the student writers first as a person, not even a student or writer. So outside the classroom, they really deserve some non-damaging experience with their written works, because they've been judged by their professors, by tests, by peer pressure all the time. So this writing center experience should open up the concept that I think is one of the most important qualification for any consultant, which is flexibility. One of the central tenets for the consultant, for the tutor, no remediation, just talk it out. So so we're not confined, like in Writing Center, we're not confined by the teacher-student relationship, where writers can feel pressure when they ask easy or even, dumb questions. So the very, like, theoretically speaking, a very basic difference between the Writing Center and the classroom is that there is no presentational talk. It's just exploratory talk. So what does that mean? So these are the two types of talks conceived by a scholar named Douglas Barnes. So when he broaches the idea of constructivist learning. So while we, in the classroom, while we try, or in front of a professor, we try to appeal to them with our knowledge and ability to organize and articulate in a presentational talk. So this, I think, is happened very, this kind of impression, this kind of talk happens very frequently in a Taiwanese classroom, I guess. So I think this kind of getting used to presentational talk in a school setting is, I don't know if it's the major reason, but I think it's definitely one of the reasons that I see that, Asian students, or at least Taiwanese students, quite often are not very active in asking questions or speaking in an American classroom, because we think that we have to do this kind of presentational talk. So while exploratory talk, we don't have particular agenda or feel stressed to answer difficult questions in that kind of exploratory talk. So exploratory talk provides a judgment-free zone where learners can talk about ideas off the top of their head. So writing space should be a space where there is only exploratory talk, so that they can, talk it out freely about their ideas. So these are just some, I think, very handy examples that tutors can use as an icebreaker, right? So I'm glad you came in. This is a great place for writers to come in and talk out their writing process, sharing perspectives, get fresh eyes on something you've been working so hard on, to get some audience feedback. And then, sometimes just say that sometimes just talking it out helps a lot, or encourage them. Well, since you've come in to work on this, I can tell you're already hardworking, ambitious students. So many don't put in extra effort. So this kind of icebreaker can really act like an friendly, inviting hand. So I think it's really helpful in my past working experience. So these will take us to what I was just talking about, the flexibility. I think flexibility is really an important qualification for any tutor. So as a consultant, I roughly categorize my duties into two. So the first part is to observe writers' attitude, question, emotion associated with their works when they step into the writing center. So in the pre-consult conversation, so the pre-consult, pre-reading conversation, I can always ask writers about their habits and process, and soliciting just more responses from them, because all these can lead to writers' concern that is probably not really visible in the product, the work itself. So these are, very good examples, because in this stage, you want to care about a writer. You want to present yourself as an empathetic fellow writer, right? So you can say something, that sounds like share your own experience as a writer, right? Organizing, to me, is always the hardest part. I usually try to write really loosely and kind of disorganized at the beginning, and then I go back and organize after, right? And then I had never read this. I don't have any experience with this genre before. Did your professor give you any examples? Probably, if you're not very clear about that, probably pull up your instruction sheet, assignment sheet, so that we can read it together, right? So I can relate to that. In fact, I'm procrastinating on an article I have to write right now, right? It's very true, right? My non-academic specialty is procrastination, right? So yeah, so these are like the like these kind of examples. You can come up with many more like this. Is those kind of language that I often use, personally often use when I talk to writers, even before I start writing. I start reading their works. So so the first part of the so the point of like modeling on this language is to show your empathy, because just like the messy nature of writing, there are usually no such a thing as an answer, right, to the issues and habits associated with writing. So the first part of the consultant's job that contributes significantly to the uniqueness of writing-centered experience is to first and foremost relate to the student as a person, creating a caring atmosphere as a fellow student. But then, just like I say here, you don't know everything, nor is it possible that you do. So the point is that you know the way to work it out and show writers that means to that the method to model on for their own writing when they write in isolation, when they write on their own. Because after all, the consultation is not a one-sided labor, it's a collaboration. So it's a very important principle. Like, it's also why that we are peer students, but we are also experienced writers. We have to be flexible, adjusting our psychological distance with the writers based on this dual identity. Here is an interesting chart here. So the comparison between the rhetoric of English and Chinese rhetorical convention. So on the left column, you see English rhetorical convention, and then on the right side, you see the Chinese one. So I think the first two rows are especially interesting to me, and then it's also the kind of like the cultural phenomena that I most frequently witness in students' work. So the first column, the first row, on the English side, writing is viewed as a tool to accomplish a task, that is to express a point or present an argument. While on the Chinese side, writing is viewed as a way of engaging the emotions through beautiful language. And on the second row, the English side focus on clarity, directness, and getting to the point. While on the Chinese side, we have focus on language richness or the ability to repeat ideas in a variety of ways. Digression is seen as a way of linking the subject under discussion to other issues to show a wider range of knowledge. So I think, you know, and also like the six, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The last row, I think the last row, yeah, on the English side, we have emphasis on the individuality and originality of ideas. And while on the Chinese side, we have emphasis on traditional wisdom and shared cultural knowledge. So this is the stuff I was talking about. So like the basic, you know, like a quick glance at this chart show us like in the English rhetorical convention, the language is more kind of thoroughly as a kind of a tool, a function, right? A very like function-oriented concept. While Chinese is more, I feel, I don't know what you see in this, but I kind of like feel English is more like a tool, like a function, and then Chinese is more like a talent, like a general talent. So I think there are like for me, there are two important takeaways here. So one thing is that writing, you know, through the different comparison between English and Chinese rhetorical convention, we see that there are things that's larger, more important than grammar. It's not just about right or wrong, obviously. And then the second takeaway, which is more important, I think, is that this chart, reading this chart is not suggesting that the English side is correct or the Chinese side is wrong. It's just a pure cultural discrepancy. I think these kind of comparison, we can make much out of it But then basically, what I want to say is that when we are talking about, because we work on mostly, I don't know if CAL in SIDA, if you work on Chinese writing or not. But then if we're mainly working on English writing, then sometimes we will get, you probably will get the feeling that I have, that it's all grammatically correct, but something is just not right for this particular like English, this piece of English writing. So you probably can refer to this one. And by the way, this chart is made by a talented professor named, also a Taiwanese coach named Jian Sijie. I believe he's working as a professor in, like I think it's Taipei Sangye Daxue or something like that. But this is made by Professor Jian, and his specialty is intercultural rhetoric, I believe, if I remember correctly. All right, so this is not about right or wrong. So this is about, I believe this is about our awareness of genre, because I don't know your experience of writing in Chinese. Of course, our habit of like Chinese writing will inevitably, and it's not the wrong thing, influence our English writing, right? But then when we are dealing with English writing, we need to have a more, have a stronger awareness about the genre we're dealing with.